Welcome along to the deep dive. This is where we take, well, a whole bunch of sources, research, articles, whatever we've got, and really boil it down, find those key insights so you get a shortcut to being, properly informed. Today, we're diving into something, well, pretty unexpected, actually. It's based on this really fascinating piece of film analysis we found over at www.epistles.online. We're looking at a brand new film. It's called The Ritual, apparently due out in 2025. Now, look. On the surface, it seems like your standard Hollywood horror flick, but the analysis we read, it suggests there's something much, much deeper going on.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those analyses that really makes you rethink things. Our source today, from epistles.online, uncovers this surprising theological depth. And it's in a film that, most people would just write off as a secular horror movie. So yeah, get ready to maybe have your view of mainstream movies, maybe even faith, challenged a bit.
Okay, let's jump right in then. So, The Ritual, it's being described, like I said, 2025 Hollywood horror, focuses on exorcism. The director, David, is Jewish, and you've got big secular names in there, Al Pacino, Dan Stevens. So, for most folks, that sounds about as far from genuinely religious content as you can imagine, right?
Maybe like on paper, it doesn't scream Catholic movie.
But yeah, this source we're looking at, www.epistles.online, he makes this really bold claim, doesn't he? What's the core argument there?
He really does. It's quite striking. The source basically argues that The Ritual turns out to be, and this is a quote, a remarkably Catholic movie. He actually goes further, calling it potentially one of the most theologically accurate portrayals of exorcism and priestly life ever produced in Hollywood.
Wow, okay.
You know,
That's a huge claim.
It is. And what makes it stand out, according to the source, is that unlike your typical exorcism movie, the type, jump scares, maybe twisting theology a bit, this one is described as really grounded in authentic Catholic teaching and practice.
Right, so not just using the setting, but actually respecting the substance.
Yeah.
Well, it does challenge how we usually see Hollywood handle this stuff, especially horror. So how did they pull this off? How did they get this level of authenticity given, the usual approach?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The source really highlights the effort behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It says the filmmakers actually worked closely with real priests to ensure accuracy.
Real priests. Okay.
Yeah. And we're not just talking general advice. They got into the weeds. Like, the source mentions they meticulously recreated the Latin Mass as celebrated in 1928.
1928 specifically.
Exactly. And also showing the cautious process the church uses before even deciding if an exorcism is needed. It's not just straight to the spooky stuff. And get this level of detail. Apparently, they chose an actual epistle reading appropriate to the liturgical calendar of 1928 for a homily scene.
That's incredibly specific.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the source makes this point where other films make exorcism just a spectacle. The Ritual seems to treat it with a kind of reverence. Showing real respect for the sacramentals, holy water, blessings, those kind of things, and the actual rituals that have been part of Catholic life for, well, centuries.
Okay, so the details are right, but there's more to it, isn't there? Our source says the film isn't just about the horror, despite the genre. He argues that, at its heart, it's really a story about two priests.
Precisely. That's the core. You have Al Pacino as Father Theophilus. He's the experienced exorcist. And then Dan Stevens plays Father Steiger, who's more of a parish priest dealing with his own personal issues, family stuff.
Right.
And the film apparently dives deep into the spiritual and emotional lives of these priests. It really leans into a key Catholic theological idea that the power in an exorcism, it doesn't come from the priest himself, his personality or strength, but from Christ working through him.
Oh, okay. The priest as an instrument.
Oh, exactly. The source even quotes a line from Pacino's character, Father Theophilus, saying something like, "Father, you're not a spectator, you're a priest," and connects that directly to this Catholic understanding, priests as channels for Christ's saving power.
So it's exploring bigger themes then, beyond just the demonic possession.
Oh, definitely. Things like faith, vocation, why there's suffering, the whole mystery of evil, and how the church, often through, as the source puts it, the frail and imperfect humanity of her priests, still stands as this bulwark against the forces of darkness.
Yeah.
It's really about the grace of God acting through his ministers.
That's a very different angle for a horror film. Powerful stuff. And maybe even more surprising than the on-screen accuracy is something else. The source mentions how the making of the film, the production itself, sort of became, well, he calls it a form of evangelization.
Yeah, it's a really remarkable part of the story, isn't it? The source shares this anecdote about Al Pacino. Apparently, Pacino wasn't particularly involved with Catholicism beforehand, but working on this, he got deeply curious about the faith.
Seriously, Al Pacino.
Yeah, and not just asking, how do I hold this? Or how do I say this Latin phrase? He was asking deep theological questions. Things about the nature of Christ's sacrifice, the role of priests, why God permits suffering. Big questions.
Oh,
And apparently a lot of his ad-libbed lines in the film actually came out of these discussions he was having. So they were infused with real Catholic thought, organically.
that's incredible. Just Pacino, or did it spread?
No, it seems it had a wider effect.
Mm.
Source mentions Dan Stevens attended Mass regularly during production.
Hmm.
And even some of the true apparently grew interested in the faith. They started asking for daily blessings of the set.
Daily blessings on a Hollywood set.
Yeah. So, what started out as just another movie project seems to have evolved into an unexpected encounter with the truth and beauty of Catholicism for quite a few people involved.
Hmm.
It shows how art, when done with a certain integrity, can, touch people in unexpected ways.
So, pulling all this together then, the accuracy, the focus on the priest, the behind-the-scenes impact, what does the source say is the film's ultimate message? How does he see it being received?
Well, the conclusion from www.epistles.online is that the ritual isn't just horror, it's also a cinematic catechesis, like a teaching moment on the priesthood, the reality of the spiritual battle, and ultimately the reality of Christ's victory.
Mm.
He really hammers home that it stands out as this genuinely authentic Catholic movie, even if maybe that was not his original intention.
Right, an accidental masterpiece of sorts, theologically speaking.
Kind of, yeah. For Catholic viewers, he presented as this sort of hidden gem, a film that actually treats the church with respect, gets exorcism right, and tells a story that focuses on the true dignity of the priesthood.
Okay. But there's a catch, isn't there? The source does add a bit of a warning.
Ah, yes, there is that. The source, again, that's www.epistles.online, mentions the film is likely to be hated by the secular world.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not just the secular world. He also suggests it isn't for liberal Catholic theologians and apologists who support the claim that Judas might have been saved.
Oh, interesting. Why that specific point about Judas?
The source doesn't elaborate much, just implies that if you watch the film, it'll become clear why it wouldn't sit well with that particular theological viewpoint.
Okay.
It suggests the film takes a pretty clear stance on certain things.
Okay. So it sounds like a film that's going to provoke some strong reactions, both positive and negative, which really leads us to a great final thought for you, the listener. How can art, even something in a genre like horror, which we often dismiss, how can it unexpectedly become this vehicle for really deep spiritual or theological ideas? How can it challenge our assumptions about entertainment, but maybe also about faith itself?
It's a fascinating question, right? It really pushes us to look past the label, past the genre, to see that, well, truth, or maybe just profound questions, can pop up in the most unlikely places. Even mainstream movies made for mass audiences. It encourages us, I think, to keep an open mind about where we might find meaning, or at least something that makes us think.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our deep dive into The Ritual, based on that analysis from www.epistles.online. Who would have thought, eh? A Hollywood horror film potentially offering such, well, profound spiritual depth. As the source revealed, it seems there's far more going on beneath the surface than just scares a surprisingly authentic look at Catholic life and the priesthood.
We certainly hope this dive is giving you some food for thought.
And hey, if you enjoyed this kind of analysis and want more short, insightful movie reviews like this one, definitely head over to www.epistles.online. You can subscribe there, and also subscribe to the Catholic Epistles podcast on your usual platform so you don't miss out on new content. Or just browse the archives. There's plenty there already. Epistles Online aims to be a resource for Catholics looking for that balanced perspective. Not leaning too far into modernist ideas, but also not going into ultra-traditionalist territory either.
Yeah.
Just solid, balanced takes.
Finding that middle ground.
Exactly. And look, if you find value in what they're doing over there, if you feel moved to help out, please do consider supporting this apostolate. It's a mission, really, to share the faith. Any support helps keep resources like this running and, importantly, freely available for everyone who might benefit.
Every little bit helps keep the lights on, as they say.
It really does. Okay, that's us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.